overnight, the Corpus punk scene became a speed metal scene. A speed metal and a thrash metal scene. And I was very, very much rooted in the Ramones and the Sex Pistols and the New York Dolls and stuff. And suddenly I was too old and played too slow. I only had one more issue of Noise, Noise, Noise after that.
But you were starting to write for larger publications.
Flipside wanted some stuff from me. Earflesh wanted some stuff. What ended up happening is I worked on a third issue of Noise, 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 and I just realized I couldn't sustain it because the magazine was growing beyond me. I didn't have the money to be able to step up the circulation like I needed to because people were taking notice of it nationally. We were getting a lot of it. It was getting a lot of attention. I was the only guy doing the thing too. Nobody else wrote for the mag except for one or two other national guys I'd encountered just through the fanzine network. And all the material that I was saving for NNN number 3 ended up being farmed out to other national fanzines and stuff. And suddenly I was this famous rock journalist, you know. And here I was just this some little student from Texas A&I in Kingsville, you know.
Who did you get to talk to in terms of bands? Who did you interview?
At that time, DOA was my very first major interview. Joey Shithead and DOA have signposted a lot of major things in my life. I ended up doing the first touring that the Hormones ever did in our second incarnation in Austin, opening for DOA across Texas. You know, a lot of firsts are connected with that band for me. And who else? The Lazy Cowgirls out of LA, Jeff Dahl. I had a very disastrous interview with the Ramones at that time.
Disastrous?
I was nervous meeting them. I was very nervous meeting them. I'd idolized this band. I got backstage and they were all being pretty mean to me except for Joey. And Joey agreed to talk to me and I forgot my questions. And he just walked away. He told me, "This is pathetic, man." I was crestfallen.
Where was this?
In Austin. It was halfway to Sanity tour. They'd just gotten Marky back in the band. Later on, I ended up interviewing the Ramones many, many times and getting along quite well with them. I probably did their final ever interview as the Ramones just before they broke up. And it was because Alternative Press was contracted to do the tour program for the Lollapalooza tour that they were on that ended up being their final tour.
What year was that?
96. Iggy Pop too. Iggy Pop too. And once again, the first of many times I talked to Iggy. Steve Jones, I did a very extensive interview about his entire career in 1989 that ended up becoming my first piece for Alternative Press back when it was a fanzine. I ended up being the first paid writer for AP because I had met Mike Shea on a business trip to Cleveland. He gave me a copy of his magazine, asked if I had anything. I said, "Yeah, I got this interview with Steve Jones that nobody wants to run because they're tired of me writing about the Sex Pistols." And he said, "I'll run it." And I said, "Do you pay?" He lied to me. Joe Banks, who was the editor then, made Mike pay me. So I ended up the first paid writer for AP. That was a fun little interview. I got Steve's entire history. I got the scoop on every heist he pulled off to get equipment for the Sex Pistols. You know.
Didn't he hit Bowie?
He hit Bowie. He hit Bowie the first night of what was his farewell performances at the Rainbow. After that show was over, he and Paul and Wally from the first lineup of the Sex Pistols, known as the Swankers, were all hiding in the Hammersmith Odeon, which was their local venue, and they hid, and there was a night watchman on the stage watching all the gear. He fell asleep. They all went in there with wire cutters and snipped all the wires to the mics, made off with those, made off with a bass amp, made off with the drum kit. So the first mic that Johnny Rotten sang through was actually David Bowie's mic, and as Steve said, it even had lipstick on it still. His Fender Twin Reverb that he played through the Pistols was stolen from Bob Marley and the Wailers. Once again, after a Hammersmith Odeon show, a couple of the Les Pauls that he played, not that white one, that the white custom that he got from Sil Sylvain because of Malcolm McLaren, but a couple of the backup Les Pauls that he played were stolen from Ron Wood and Keith Richards. You know, he detailed every single one of these things.
Why was he so forthcoming with you?
That's just Steve. You ask him a question, he's going to tell you the answer, but I think I was the first interviewer that he actually, maybe it was because he was in America now and the statute of limitations was over with in England. But yeah, he just told me everything. 555